The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom didn't sparkle half as much as the malice in Beatrice Sterling's eyes. She stood at the microphone, champagne in hand, laughing as she recounted the bullet her wealthy son had dodged by dumping his penniless, trashy ex. The crowd of Manhattan elites roared with laughter, unaware that the woman they were mocking was standing right behind the heavy oak doors. They thought the story was over. They thought money had won. But when those doors swung open, silence didn't just fall. It crashed, because the ex-girlfriend wasn't alone. She was pushing a double stroller, and the Sterling dynasty was about to face a reckoning that no amount of money could hush up. The envelope felt heavy in Chloe's hands, the cream-colored linen paper textured and expensive. It was the kind of stationery that whispered money, the kind that cost more per sheet than she used to spend on a week's worth of groceries. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Sterling request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their son, Harrison James Sterling, to Vanessa Claire Dumont. Chloe stared at the calligraphy, her fingers trembling slightly. It wasn't an invitation. It was a taunt. It was a final victory lap sent via courier to her cramped apartment in Queens. Beatrice Sterling, Harrison's mother, had personally ensured this arrived. Chloe knew it. Beatrice wanted her to see it. She wanted Chloe to know that while she was changing diapers and struggling to pay rent, Harrison was merging his family's real estate empire with the Dumont shipping fortune. "Baba!" The soft coo from the playpen broke Chloe's trance. She looked down. Leo was gripping the mesh siding with his chubby fist, while his sister, Mia, was busy trying to eat her own foot. They were 11 months old. They had Harrison's nose, they had his chin, and they had Beatrice's piercing blue eyes, a genetic trait that felt like a curse every time Chloe looked at her beautiful, innocent children. "It's okay, Leo," Chloe whispered, tossing the invitation onto the scarred wooden table. Just some junk mail. But it wasn't junk. It was the culmination of 2 years of hell. 2 years ago, Chloe had been Harrison's world, or so she thought. She was an interior design student, working 2 waitressing jobs to pay tuition. He was the heir to Sterling Properties. They met when she spilled a latte on his cashmere coat. It was a cliché, a fairy tale. They fell in love hard and fast. Harrison was different when he was with her. Gentle, funny, unburdened by the crushing expectations of his last name. Then he took her home to meet Beatrice. Chloe closed her eyes, the memory washing over her like acid. The dinner at the Sterling estate in the Hamptons. The way Beatrice had looked at Chloe's off-the-rack dress as if it were contaminated. The interrogation about her father, a mechanic, and her mother, a school bus driver. "You're a sweet girl, Chloe," Beatrice had said, swirling her Pinot Noir. "But let's be realistic. You're a placeholder. Harrison needs a partner who understands our world, not someone who needs a tour guide for it. Enjoy the ride while it lasts, dear. The bill always comes due." Chloe had fought for them. She thought Harrison would fight too. But when she found out she was pregnant, everything shifted. She had gone to Harrison's penthouse to tell him the news, shaking with a mix of terror and joy. But she never made it past the foyer. Beatrice was there. "Harrison is gone, Chloe," Beatrice had said, her voice devoid of emotion. "He's in Zurich. He's realized that this fling has run its course. He left this for you." She had handed Chloe a check for $50,000. "Don't come back. If you try to contact him, I'll make sure you never work in this city again. If you're pregnant, which girls like you usually claim to be to trap men like my son, get rid of it. We won't acknowledge a bastard." Chloe had ripped the check up and thrown it in Beatrice's face. She left without telling Beatrice, or Harrison, the truth. She blocked Harrison's number, changed her own, and vanished into the anonymity of the city. She dropped out of design school to work double shifts. She raised the twins alone. She thought she was done with the Sterlings. But then came the eviction notice on her apartment building 3 weeks ago, and now the invitation. Chloe picked up the envelope again. Inside, there was a smaller note tucked behind the RSVP card. It was handwritten. "Come and see what class looks like, unless you can't afford the subway fare." A fire ignited in Chloe's chest. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was a cold, hard rage. For 2 years she had been the victim. She had hidden away, terrified of Beatrice's power, terrified that they would take the twins or ruin her life further. She had protected Harrison's secret because she had too much pride to beg a man who abandoned her. But looking at Leo and Mia, playing happily with a plastic rattle, something snapped. Harrison didn't know. Beatrice had likely intercepted every attempt he might have made to find her, if he ever did. Beatrice had orchestrated this entire separation, and now she was mocking Chloe, confident that the trash would stay in the dumpster. "She thinks I'm ashamed," Chloe said aloud, her voice steadying. "She thinks I'm hiding." She walked over to the mirror. She looked tired. Her hair was in a messy bun, and she wore oversized sweatpants. But beneath the exhaustion, she saw the woman Harrison had fallen in love with. And more importantly, she saw a mother who was done being bullied. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. "Sarah," Chloe said when the line picked up. "I need a favor, a big one. Do you still have that contact at the DNA lab? And I need to borrow that dress. The red one." Sarah, her old roommate and a fierce paralegal, didn't hesitate. "Who are we killing?" "We're not killing anyone," Chloe said, looking at the invitation one last time. "We're just going to a wedding." The Plaza Hotel was a fortress of gold leaf and white roses. Security was tight, with men in earpieces checking names against a list that was likely thicker than the Bible. The Sterling Dumont wedding was the social event of the season, a merger of billions that had been covered in The Times, Vogue, and the Wall Street Journal. Inside the grand ballroom, the atmosphere was suffocatingly opulent. The air smelled of expensive perfume and imported lilies. Waiters in white gloves moved like ghosts through the crowd, offering trays of caviar and foie gras. Harrison Sterling stood at the altar, looking like a man marching to the gallows. He was handsome in his bespoke tuxedo, but his eyes were dull. He smiled when required, shook hands when approached, but his spirit seemed absent. Beside him, Vanessa Dumont looked like a porcelain doll, beautiful, stiff, and utterly cold. She was the perfect match on paper. She came from shipping money. She had a degree in art history she never used, and she deferred to Beatrice in all matters. Beatrice Sterling sat in the front row, wearing a silver gown that cost more than most people's homes. She looked like a queen on her throne. She surveyed the room with a predator's satisfaction. Everything had gone according to plan. The merger was secure. The problem from Queens had been disposed of years ago. Her legacy was safe. The ceremony was a blur of Latin phrases and hollow vows. When the priest asked if anyone had just cause to object, Harrison flinched. He looked toward the back of the room, a flicker of hope in his eyes that was quickly extinguished. Beatrice noticed the look and cleared her throat loudly, a sharp sound that snapped Harrison's attention back to the woman he didn't love. "I do," Harrison said, his voice barely a whisper. "I do," Vanessa replied, checking her reflection in the priest's glasses. As the reception began, the tension in the room shifted from solemnity to drunken arrogance. The champagne flowed. The band played jazz standards. Beatrice took the stage for the mother of the groom speech. She tapped the microphone, the feedback whine silencing the room. "Thank you, everyone," Beatrice purred. What a glorious day. Looking at Harrison and Vanessa, I am reminded that quality always finds quality. She paused for laughter. The guests obliged. "It wasn't a straight road to get here," Beatrice continued, her smile tightening. "We had some bumps, some detours." She looked directly at Harrison, who was staring into his drink. Young men can be so foolish. They can be led astray by shiny, cheap trinkets. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the room. Everyone knew the rumors. Everyone knew Harrison had dated a nobody before this. "There was a time," Beatrice said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that echoed through the speakers, "when I thought Harrison was going to throw it all away for a little waitress. Can you imagine? A sterling, living in a walk-up in Queens, eating microwave dinners?" The crowd guffawed. Vanessa covered her mouth, giggling elegantly. "She was a sweet little thing," Beatrice went on, the venom dripping now. "But let's be honest. You don't put a bumper sticker on a Bentley. You don't bring a stray dog into a showroom. I told Harrison, 'Darling, some people are meant to serve the champagne, and some are meant to drink it.' And thankfully, he listened. He woke up. He realized that trash belongs on the curb, not at the head table." Harrison's knuckles were white as he gripped the tablecloth. He looked like he wanted to vomit. "So here's to Vanessa." Beatrice raised her glass high. "A woman of breeding, a woman of class, a woman who knows her place is beside a king, not serving him fries." "To Vanessa!" the crowd shouted. Beatrice basked in the adoration. She felt invincible. She had won. She had erased Chloe so completely that she could now use her as a punchline. "And to anyone," Beatrice added, unable to resist one final jab, "who thinks they can climb the ladder by clinging to a sterling, let this be a lesson. We always cut the dead weight." The applause was thunderous. Beatrice brought the glass to her lips, the cold crystal kissing her mouth. Crash. The sound of the heavy double doors at the back of the ballroom, slamming open, cut through the applause like a gunshot. The music stopped abruptly. The chatter died. Beatrice lowered her glass, annoyed. "Security!" She barked into the microphone. "I thought we had a closed-door policy." But the security guards weren't moving. They were backing away. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the light from the lobby, was a woman in a floor-length red dress. It was a violent, blood-red shade that clashed beautifully with the pale pastels of the wedding party. The dress fit her like a second skin, showcasing a figure that was strong and womanly. Her hair was cascading in loose waves, her makeup flawless. But it wasn't the dress that made the room gasp. It was the massive, double-wide luxury stroller she was pushing with one hand. Chloe walked into the ballroom. Her heels clicked rhythmically on the marble floor. Click, click, click. It was the sound of a ticking clock counting down to an explosion. She didn't look at the guests. She didn't look at Harrison. She looked straight at Beatrice. "Security!" Beatrice shrieked, her composure cracking. "Get this woman out of here. She's a stalker. She's crazy." Two guards stepped forward, but a man in a sharp grey suit stepped out from behind Chloe. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and held up a hand. It was Arthur Penhaligon, one of the most feared attorneys in New York, and a known enemy of the Sterling family. "Touch her," Arthur said calmly, "and you'll be sued for assault before you hit the floor. She is a guest." "She is not a guest!" Beatrice screamed. "She's the trash I threw out." Chloe stopped 10 feet from the head table. She stopped pushing the stroller. She reached down and pulled back the canopy. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. Sitting in the stroller were 2 toddlers, a boy and a girl. They were dressed in miniature designer outfits, the boy in a tiny tuxedo, the girl in a white silk dress. But it was their faces that mattered. The boy, Leo, looked up and blinked. He had Harrison's exact nose. He had the sterling chin. And when he smiled, confused by the bright lights, he looked like a carbon copy of Harrison's baby photos, photos that were currently displayed on a slideshow loop behind the stage. The girl, Mia, stared at Beatrice with piercing blue eyes. Beatrice's eyes. Harrison stood up. His chair fell backward with a loud clatter. He looked at the babies. He looked at Chloe. His face drained of color, then flushed with a sudden, violent realization. "Chloe?" he choked out. Chloe finally looked at him. Her expression wasn't loving. It was icy. "Hello, Harrison," she said, her voice clear and projecting to the back of the silent room. "Sorry I'm late. It took a while to get the twins ready. You know how it is. Or, wait, you don't. Because your mother told me you wanted them dead." The silence in the ballroom was absolute, a vacuum where the air used to be. The only sound was the soft, rhythmic gurgle of the twins in the stroller and the faint hum of the air conditioning. Harrison stared at Chloe, his mouth slightly open, his eyes darting frantically between her face and the children. He looked like a man waking up from a coma into a nightmare. "Dead?" Harrison repeated, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. She told me you had an abortion. She told me you took the money and went to Europe with some bartender." "I never took a dime, Harrison," Chloe said, her voice steady, cutting through the room like a scalpel. "And I never left Queens. I was 20 minutes away the whole time, struggling to buy formula while you were buying yachts." Beatrice lunged forward, her silver gown rustling violently. Her face was a mask of panic barely concealed by rage. "Don't listen to her, Harrison. This is a trick. Look at her, she's desperate. She hired those babies. She's trying to blackmail us on your wedding day because she's jealous." She turned to the crowd, her smile manic. "Security! Why is no one moving? This woman is mentally unstable." Arthur Penhaligon, the lawyer in the grey suit, stepped forward again. He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of documents. He didn't hand them to Beatrice. He walked straight to the groomsmen and handed the first folder to Harrison's best man, the son of a senator. Then he handed one to the priest. Then he walked to the front row and handed one to Vanessa's father, Mr. Dumont. "What is this?" Mr. Dumont barked, opening the folder. "Chain of custody DNA results," Arthur announced, his voice booming without a microphone. "Samples were acquired from Mr. Sterling's discarded coffee cup 3 weeks ago and cross-referenced with the children, Leo and Mia Hart. The probability of paternity is 99.199%. Arthur pulled out a tablet. "And as for the claim that Miss Hart voluntarily left," he tapped the screen and held it up to the microphone on the podium. A recording began to play. The quality was crisp. It was undeniably Beatrice's voice. "If you try to contact him, I'll make sure you never work in this city again. If you're pregnant, which girls like you usually claim to be to trap men like my son, get rid of it. We won't acknowledge a bastard. Take the check and disappear, you little leech." The recording ended with the sound of tearing paper, Chloe ripping up the check 2 years ago. The ballroom erupted. The whispers turned into a roar. The elites of Manhattan loved a scandal, and this was a feast. Phones were out, recording everything. The mother of the groom speech, where Beatrice had mocked Chloe for being trash, now played in everyone's mind on a loop, juxtaposed with the cruelty of the recording. Harrison stood frozen. The color had drained completely from his face. He looked at his mother. "You told me she didn't want the baby," Harrison whispered, his voice cracking. "You told me she hated me. I did what was necessary, Beatrice shrieked, abandoning the facade. I was protecting the family name. Look at her, Harrison. She's a nobody. Do you want half your fortune going to that? She pointed a shaking finger at the twins. Harrison looked at the twins. Leo was waving a small fist. Mia was watching him with wide eyes. Harrison took a step down from the altar. Then another. He walked past his mother as if she were a piece of furniture. He approached the stroller. He fell to his knees, heedless of his custom tuxedo trousers hitting the hard marble. He reached out a trembling hand toward Mia. She grabbed his finger. A sob broke from Harrison's chest. It was a raw, ugly sound. He looked up at Chloe, tears streaming down his face. I didn't know, he choked out. Chloe, I swear to God, I didn't know. I wrote you letters. Hundreds of them. I never got them, Chloe said coldly. Your mother owns the building I lived in back then. She controls the mailroom. She controls everything, doesn't she? Harrison stood up. The sorrow in his eyes hardened into something dangerous. He turned around to face the altar. To face Vanessa. Vanessa Dumont was standing there, holding her bouquet. She looked at the chaos, then at Harrison. Well, Vanessa said, her voice surprisingly calm, this is awkward. Vanessa, Harrison said, I can't. Oh, thank God, Vanessa exhaled, dropping the bouquet. She ripped the veil off her head. Do you have any idea how boring you are, Harrison? I was only doing this because Daddy threatened to cut off my trust fund. She turned to her father. Sorry, Daddy. The merger is off. I'm not being stepmom to twins. I'm going to Ibiza. Vanessa walked off the stage, stepping over her own train. Harrison turned to his mother. Beatrice was trembling, not with fear, but with indignation. You ruined this, Beatrice hissed, and you are out of the will. You are out of the company. You hear me, Harrison? I will strip you naked. Harrison reached up and unpinned the white rose boutonniere from his lapel. He threw it at Beatrice's feet. Keep the money, Mother, Harrison said, his voice low and lethal. You're going to need it for the lawyers. He turned back to Chloe. Let's go, please. Let me just get you out of here. Chloe looked at him, her expression unreadable. She didn't smile. She didn't offer forgiveness. I'm not going anywhere with you, Harrison, she said. I didn't come here to get you back. I came here to clear my name and to introduce you to the children you were too weak to fight for. She unlocked the brakes on the stroller. Arthur, are we done here? We are. Arthur smiled, closing his briefcase. The process servers have just delivered the lawsuit for defamation and emotional distress to Mrs. Sterling's security detail outside. Chloe turned the stroller around. Goodbye, Beatrice. Enjoy the cake. The lobby of the plaza was quiet compared to the pandemonium inside the ballroom. Chloe walked briskly toward the exit, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She had held it together in there. She had been the Ice Queen. But now the adrenaline was crashing. Chloe, wait! Harrison came running out of the ballroom doors, his tie undone, his hair wild. He sprinted across the lobby and slid to a halt in front of her, blocking her path to the revolving doors. Please, he panted, just give me 5 minutes, please. Chloe stopped. She looked at Arthur, who gave her a subtle nod and stepped back to give them space, though he remained close enough to intervene. You have 2 minutes, Harrison, Chloe said. I want to be part of their lives, Harrison blurted out. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the company. I'll renounce it all. I saw them, Chloe. They're mine. They're ours. They have been yours for 11 months, Chloe said. Where were you when Leo had colic and screamed for 6 hours straight? Where were you when Mia took her first steps? I didn't know, Harrison pleaded. You have to believe me. I believe you didn't know, Chloe admitted. "But I also know that you let your mother run your life. You let her filter your calls, your mail, your reality. You were a grown man, Harrison, and you acted like a child. And because of that, my children didn't have a father." "I can change," Harrison said desperately. "I am changing. Right now, I walked away from her." "Walking away is easy when the building is already on fire," Chloe countered. Before Harrison could respond, the ballroom doors swung open again. Beatrice marched out, flanked by 3 security guards and her personal assistant. She didn't look defeated. She looked venomous. She was in damage control mode. "Harrison James Sterling," she barked. "Get back inside. We need to issue a statement. We need to spin this. We can say she's a surrogate we hired and the contract had a dispute." "Are you insane?" Harrison stared at her. "There is no spin, Mother. It's over." Beatrice ignored him and turned her cold gaze on Chloe. She walked up to the stroller, looking at the twins with a mixture of disgust and calculation. "So," Beatrice sneered, "you think you've won the lottery, do you? You think popping out 2 Sterling heirs means you're set for life?" "I don't need your money, Beatrice," Chloe said calmly. "Oh, please, spare me the righteous act," Beatrice scoffed, opening her clutch and pulling out a checkbook. "Everyone has a price. How much? How much to sign full custody over to us and disappear for real this time? We can't have a waitress raising Sterling blood. They need boarding school. They need discipline, not whatever this is." She waved a hand at Chloe's dress. "I'm not a waitress anymore," Chloe said. "Oh, right, a mother," Beatrice mocked. "Unemployed and living off state benefits, I assume?" Chloe laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "Arthur?" Arthur stepped forward. "Mrs. Sterling, are you familiar with the design firm Aurelia & Co.? The firm you've been begging to renovate the Sterling penthouse suites in Tokyo and Dubai? The firm that has turned down your requests 3 times? Beatrice blinked, confused by the change in topic. "Of course I know them. They are the hottest design firm in the city. Their lead designer is a recluse, a genius. What does that have to do with this trash?" "Beatrice," Chloe said, her voice dropping an octave, settling into a tone of absolute authority. "I am Aurelia." Beatrice froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Aurelia is my middle name," Chloe explained, smoothing the fabric of her red dress. "When I left 2 years ago, I didn't just cry. I worked. I finished my degree at night. I started my portfolio online anonymously. My designs went viral. I have contracts with the Hilton, the 4 Seasons, and half the penthouses on Park Avenue." She stepped closer to Beatrice, towering over her in her heels. "I bought the building I live in last month," Chloe whispered. "I bought it so you couldn't evict me. I make more in a month than you give Harrison for his allowance in a year." The realization hit Beatrice like a physical blow. The power dynamic shifted instantly. Chloe wasn't the poor girl begging for scraps. She was a peer, a rival, a superior. "So," Chloe continued, her eyes blazing, "when you threaten to take my children, to give them a better life, remember this. I can buy and sell you. I can bury you in legal fees until you have to pawn that tacky necklace. You have no leverage here. You are just a bitter, lonely old woman who lost her son because she couldn't stand to see him happy." Beatrice staggered back, clutching her chest. For the first time in her life, she looked small. Chloe grabbed the handle of the stroller. "Harrison, if you want to see the kids, call Arthur. We'll set up a visitation schedule, supervised, in a public place. But if she gestured to Beatrice, ever comes within 500 feet of them, I will burn the Sterling name to the ground." "Understood," Harrison said immediately. He looked at his mother with pure loathing. "She won't come near them. I promise." "Don't make promises you can't keep," "Harrison," Chloe said, "just show up." She pushed the stroller toward the revolving doors. The doorman, sensing the shift in power, rushed to hold the door open for her. Chloe walked out into the cool New York evening, the flashes of paparazzi cameras greeting her. But she didn't hide her face. She held her head high. She was Chloe Hart, owner of Aurelia & Co., mother of twins, and the woman who had just brought the Sterling dynasty to its knees. Harrison stood in the lobby, watching her go. He felt a strange mixture of heartbreak and pride. He turned to his mother, who was hyperventilating on a velvet bench. "You're fired," Harrison said. Beatrice looked up, gasping. You can't fire me. I'm the matriarch." "I'm the CEO," Harrison said, "and as of this morning, the board voted to give me full executive control pending the merger. The merger you just destroyed. Pack your desk, Mother. You're done." The days following the wedding that never happened were a blur of flash bulbs and legal summons. The New York tabloids were having a field day. The headlines were savage. Prince Charming dumps heiress for secret twins, and the billionaire baby mama. Who is Aurelia? For Beatrice Sterling, the humiliation was absolute. She had been barred from the Sterling Properties headquarters. Her security badge had been deactivated. When she tried to enter the lobby, the same guards she had verbally abused for 20 years escorted her out. Not gently. But Beatrice wasn't the type to go quietly into the night. She retreated to her estate in the Hamptons, turning it into a war room. On a rainy Tuesday, 3 weeks after the wedding fiasco, Chloe sat in her office at Aurelia & Co. in Soho. The space was a reflection of her. Modern, warm, and impeccably designed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the cobblestone streets. Arthur walked in, looking grim. He placed a tablet on her desk. "You need to see this," he said. "She's on the morning view." Chloe sighed, spinning her chair around. "Turn it up." On the screen, Beatrice Sterling sat on a beige sofa, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She looked frail, a stark contrast to the imperious woman in the ballroom. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. "I just want to see my grandchildren," Beatrice sobbed to the sympathetic host. "I admit I was harsh. I was protecting my son from what I thought was a gold digger. How was I to know she was a successful designer? She hid it. She deceived us all. And now, she's using those innocent babies as pawns. She's alienated Harrison from me. I'm an old woman. I just want to bake cookies with them before I die." The host leaned in, patting Beatrice's hand. "And you believe she's unfit?" "She works 18 hours a day," Beatrice cried, her voice sharpening. "She drags those children to construction sites. They are breathing in drywall dust while she picks out curtains. Is that a mother? Or is that a woman obsessed with her career?" Chloe turned off the tablet. The room was silent. "She's good," Chloe muttered. I almost felt sorry for her. "She's filing for grandparents' rights," Arthur warned, "and she's petitioning for a competency hearing for Harrison, claiming you've brainwashed him." "Let her try," Chloe said, standing up. "What's Harrison doing?" "That's the other thing," Arthur said, a rare smile touching his lips. "He's in the lobby. He has an appointment." Chloe frowned. "I didn't approve an appointment." "He's not here to see you. He's here to see the HR director. He applied for a job." Chloe blinked. "Excuse me?" She walked out of her office and down the glass staircase to the reception area. There, sitting in a waiting chair usually reserved for junior designers, was Harrison Sterling. He looked different. The bespoke suits were gone. He was wearing dark jeans, a grey sweater, and work boots. He looked tired, but for the first time in years, he looked real. He stood up when he saw her. "What are you doing, Harrison?" she asked, crossing her arms. "I need a job," he said simply. I froze my own trust fund to stop my mother from accessing the liquid assets for her legal fees, which means I'm locked out too. I sold the penthouse. I'm renting a studio in Brooklyn. And you think I would hire you? Chloe asked incredulously. I don't expect to be an executive, Harrison said. I have a degree in structural engineering, Chloe. I haven't used it because my father forced me into finance, but I know buildings. I know load-bearing walls. I know permits. I saw your job posting for a project manager for the Hudson Hotel renovation. You want to be a project manager? Chloe scoffed. You're used to giving orders, not taking them from contractors. Try me, Harrison said. His eyes locked onto hers. I'm not the man who left you, Chloe. I'm the man trying to earn the right to know his kids. I can't pay child support right now because of the asset freeze. So let me work. Let me contribute. Chloe studied him. She looked for the arrogance, the entitlement. She saw only desperation and resolve. Arthur? Chloe called out without looking away from Harrison. Yes, Miss Hart? Give him the blueprints for the Hudson project. Tell him to do a structural assessment of the lobby. If he misses a single crack in the foundation, he's fired. Harrison exhaled, his shoulders dropping in relief. Thank you. Don't thank me, Chloe said coldly. You're an employee now. And Harrison, if you are 1 minute late, if you act like a diva, or if you mention your mother, you're done. Understood, Harrison said. For the next month, Harrison worked like a dog. He was the first one on the site at 6 a.m. and the last one to leave. He hauled debris, he argued with electricians, and he caught a major error in the HVAC plans that would have cost Chloe $500,000. He didn't ask to see the twins during work hours. He didn't try to flirt with Chloe. He just worked. It was a rainy Saturday when Chloe finally relented. She texted him. Park Slope Playground, 2 p.m. Don't be late. When she arrived with the double stroller, Harrison was already there. He was sitting on a bench, nervous, holding 2 small teddy bears. When he saw them, his face lit up with a vulnerability that made Chloe's chest ache. He knelt down on the wet pavement. Hi, he whispered to Leo and Mia. Leo stared at him suspiciously, clutching his blanket. Mia, however, reached out and grabbed the teddy bear Harrison offered. Da! Mia babbled. Harrison froze. Tears welled in his eyes. He looked up at Chloe. She calls everyone Da right now, Chloe said quickly, guarding her heart. Don't read into it. It's okay. Harrison wiped his eyes, laughing softly. I'll take it. He spent the next hour pushing them on the swings. He didn't check his phone. He didn't care that he was getting soaked by the drizzle. He was present. As they packed up to leave, Harrison turned to Chloe. My mother is planning something, he said, his voice dropping. She's been liquidating her jewelry. She's hiring private investigators. Watch your back, Chloe. She's not done. I know, Chloe said, but neither am I. Harrison's warning proved prophetic. 2 days later, the sabotage began. It started small. A shipment of Italian marble for Chloe's biggest client arrived shattered. The trucking company claimed it was an accident, but the driver had a brand new Rolex on his wrist. Then, the Department of Buildings showed up for a random inspection of the Hudson Hotel site. They shut down construction for 3 days over a minor permit clerical error, an error that had been mysteriously flagged by an anonymous tip. Chloe was bleeding money. The delays were costing her reputation damage. She was in her kitchen, pacing, trying to calm a screaming Leo who was teething when her phone rang. It was the nanny, Mrs. Higgins. Miss Hart, you need to come home, Mrs. Higgins sounded panicked. It's the health department and Child Protective Services. Chloe dropped the phone. She grabbed her keys and ran. When she arrived at her apartment building, there were 2 police cars outside. Inside her living room, a stern-looking woman with a clipboard was inspecting her refrigerator. "What is going on?" Chloe demanded, rushing in. "Ms. Hart?" the woman asked. "We received a report of hazardous conditions in the home. Unsanitary food, exposed wiring, and drug paraphernalia." "That's a lie!" Chloe shouted. "Who called you? Beatrice Sterling?" "The report was anonymous," the woman said droningly. "We found this in the nursery." She held up a small plastic bag containing white powder. It was tucked under the changing table pad. Chloe felt the room spin. "That's planted. I've never done drugs in my life. You can test me right now. Test my hair. Test my blood." "We will," the woman said. "But until the investigation is complete, we cannot leave the children in this environment. They will be placed in temporary foster care." "No!" Chloe screamed, launching herself between the woman and the playpen. "You are not taking my children. This is a setup." The officer stepped forward, hand on his holster. "Ma'am, step back. Don't touch her." Harrison burst through the door. He was covered in drywall dust, sweating, breathing hard. He had evidently run all the way from the construction site. "Harrison, stay out of this," the officer warned. "I am the father," Harrison stated, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "This is my paternity acknowledgement, filed with the court last week. And this," he pointed to the bag of powder, "is baking soda." He grabbed the bag from the social worker before the officer could stop him. He dipped his finger in it and tasted it. "Harrison!" Chloe gasped. "It's baking soda," Harrison spat. "And I bet if you check the security cameras in the hallway, you'll see a man in a blue maintenance uniform entering this apartment at 10 a.m. while the nanny was at the park. A man who isn't employed by this building." Harrison pulled out his phone. "I have the doorman on video call right now. He says a man claimed to be checking the smoke detectors. He showed a work order signed by Beatrice Sterling." The social worker paused. She looked at the bag, then at Harrison. "If this is a dispute between family—" "It is," Harrison said, his voice shaking with rage. "It is a harassment campaign. And if you remove these children, you will be complicit in a kidnapping orchestrated by a woman who is currently under investigation for corporate fraud." The social worker hesitated. "We still need to test the substance." "Test it here," Harrison challenged. "Use your field kit." The officer pulled out a field test kit. He tested the powder. Negative for cocaine, negative for meth. "It's baking soda," the officer confirmed. The social worker closed her folder. "Ms. Hart, Mr. Sterling, I suggest you get a restraining order. We will mark this report as unfounded, malicious intent." As soon as the door closed behind them, Chloe's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, sobbing. Harrison was there instantly, wrapping his arms around her. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't push him away. She buried her face in his dusty work shirt and cried. "She tried to take them," Chloe shook. "She planted drugs." "She's desperate," Harrison said, stroking her hair. "She knows she's losing. But she made a mistake. She used a guy I know. That maintenance man? He used to be her driver. I recognized the description." Harrison pulled back, looking Chloe in the eye. "I'm going to end this, Chloe. Tonight." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to give her what she wants," Harrison said darkly. That evening, Harrison drove to the Hamptons. He didn't take a car service. He drove Chloe's SUV. He found Beatrice sitting in her library, drinking scotch by the fire. She looked up as he entered, not surprised, but smug. "Did CPS take the brats?" she asked casually. "Almost," Harrison said, walking to the desk. "But you got sloppy, Mother." "Baking soda, really?" "It was just a warning shot. Beatrice shrugged. Next time it will be fentanyl. Next time she goes to prison. Harrison stared at her. He felt nothing. No love, no fear, no attachment, just a cold resolve. There won't be a next time. Harrison threw a thick envelope onto the desk. "What is this?" Beatrice sneered. "It's a plea deal," Harrison said, "from the district attorney." Beatrice froze. "I went to the DA this afternoon," Harrison explained calmly. "I gave them the ledgers, Mother. The double books you kept for the charity foundation. The offshore accounts in the Caymans where you were funneling the construction kickbacks. I gave them everything. I turned state's evidence against you." Beatrice's glass shattered on the floor. You wouldn't." "I am your mother." "And they are my children," Harrison roared, the sound shaking the walls. "You tried to frame their mother. You tried to put them in foster care. You crossed the line." He leaned over the desk. "The police are 5 minutes behind me. They have a warrant for your arrest for embezzlement, tax fraud, and filing a false police report." Beatrice stood up, trembling violently. "I did this for you, to save our legacy." "You have no legacy," Harrison said, turning his back on her. "The Sterling name is mud, but the Hart name, that's going to mean something." Blue and red lights flashed through the library window. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. "Harrison!" Beatrice screamed, running after him. "Don't leave me! Fix this!" Harrison walked out the front door into the cool night air. He watched as 3 police cruisers screeched up the driveway. He watched as they cuffed his mother. He watched as they put her in the back of the car. He didn't look back. He got in the SUV and drove back to Queens. Back to the small apartment. Back to the crying babies. Back to the woman who was finally, slowly, beginning to look at him, not as a monster, but as a man. 1 year later, the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Hudson Hotel was nothing like the Sterling Dumont wedding. There were no armed guards, no forced smiles, and no mothers lurking in the shadows to poison the punch. Instead, there was laughter. The lobby, a masterpiece of Art Deco revival with soaring columns and warm, ambient lighting, was packed with genuine admirers. Chloe stood at the podium wearing a sleek white pantsuit that screamed power and elegance. She held a pair of oversized ceremonial scissors. "This building," Chloe said into the microphone, her voice confident, "was once a ruin. It was falling apart. The foundation was cracked. People said it should be torn down." She looked into the crowd. She saw her team from Aurelia & Co. beaming at her. She saw Arthur Penhaligon, who was now her general counsel, raising a glass of champagne. And she saw Harrison. He wasn't in the front row. He was standing near a support column he had personally reinforced, wearing a simple navy suit. He held Leo on his left hip and Mia on his right. The twins, now almost 2 years old, were wiggling and pointing at the balloons. "But," Chloe continued, her eyes softening as they met Harrison's, "sometimes things have to fall apart so they can be rebuilt stronger. You strip away the rot. You reinforce the core. And what you're left with is something that can weather any storm." She cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered. As the party swung into full gear, Chloe slipped away from the photographers and walked over to Harrison. "Nice speech," Harrison said, shifting Mia so she could grab a canapé from a passing waiter. "A little metaphorical, don't you think?" "I was talking about the hotel," Chloe teased, wiping a crumb off his lapel. "Sure you were," Harrison grinned. The shadows that used to haunt his eyes were gone. He looked healthy, tired in the good way that comes from honest work, and utterly content. "How is she?" Chloe asked quietly. Harrison's smile didn't falter, but his expression grew serious. I visited her yesterday, up in Bedford Hills. Beatrice Sterling was 6 months into a 10-year sentence for fraud and embezzlement. The Sterling empire had been dissolved, the assets auctioned off to pay back the investors she had swindled. The Hamptons estate was now owned by a tech billionaire who had turned the wine cellar into a bowling alley. "She's adjusting," Harrison said diplomatically. She complained that the prison uniforms are polyester and that her cellmate snores. She asked if I could smuggle in some La Mer face cream. "Did you?" "No," Harrison said. "I brought her a picture of the twins. She tore it up." Chloe reached out and squeezed his hand. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Harrison said, looking down at his children. "She made her choice, and I made mine." He put the twins down. "Go see Uncle Arthur," he told them. "He has chocolate." As the toddlers toddled off toward the delighted lawyer, Harrison turned back to Chloe. He reached into his pocket. Chloe's breath hitched. "Harrison, we talked about this. No big gestures, no pressure." "It's not a ring," Harrison said. "Well, not a diamond one." He pulled out a small, tarnished brass key. "I finished the renovation on the brownstone in Brooklyn," he said. "The one I bought with my own money. My salary. No trust funds, no inheritance. Just me." He placed the key in her palm. "It has a garden for the kids," he said. "It has a studio with north-facing light for you, and it has a lease with both our names on it, if you want it." Chloe looked at the key. It was heavy, rough, and real. It wasn't a pristine, cold diamond from a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue. It was a promise of work, a promise of a life built brick by brick, shared and earned. "You're asking me to move in with you?" Chloe asked. "I'm asking you to build a life with me," Harrison corrected. "We did the parenting backwards. We did the drama backwards. Let's do the happy ending the right way." Chloe looked across the room. She saw the life she had fought for. She saw the man who had fought his way back to her, not with money, but with humility. She closed her hand over the key. "I'm going to need to redecorate the kitchen," she warned. Harrison laughed, pulling her into his arms. "I was counting on it." He kissed her, and for the first time, there were no cameras, no speeches, and no secrets. Just two people who had survived the fire and found each other in the ashes. Outside, the New York skyline glittered, indifferent to their story. But inside, under the roof they had built together, everything was finally, perfectly still. The Sterling dynasty was dead. The Hart family was just beginning. What a roller coaster of emotions. From the humiliation at the wedding to that satisfying moment when Beatrice realized she was facing the real owner of Aurelia & Co. This story proves that karma always keeps receipts. Harrison's journey from a puppet of his mother to a man who works for his family is a reminder that it's never too late to do the right thing, but you have to be willing to lose everything to gain what truly matters. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think Harrison deserved a second chance, or should Chloe have walked away for good? And what would you have done if your mother-in-law tried to pull a stunt like Beatrice? If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss a new drama. Thanks for watching.